Over 40. Listen closely. By now, you think you know yourself, your capabilities, right? What if I told you everything you believe about your life, your finances, relationships, health, is merely a single paradigm controlling your every move? Sounds absurd. It does, but that's precisely what's happening right now as you watch this. You wake up, follow the same routine, repeat the same decisions, unknowingly living within an invisible pattern dictating your actions. This isn't just a habit. It's a deep-seated mental program built since childhood, solidifying over decades into a paradigm. By 40 plus, it's become second skin, so comfortable and familiar you're oblivious to its existence. It dictates what you believe is possible, what you deserve, and how far you can go. It makes you accept a limited salary, maintain uninspiring relationships, and repeat routines offering no real growth. And while it seems like just another aspect of adult life, this paradigm is shaping your destiny, even as you hear these words. Behind every recurring thought, automatic reaction, and self-justification lies subconscious programming deciding for you. This means even when you want to change, promise to start a new project, save money, or pursue a healthier life, you revert to square one. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a deep-seated mental program installed long ago, now operating on autopilot. How many times have you tried to break this cycle? How many times have you promised to do differently only to see the same results? This repetition isn't coincidence. It's the paradigm defending its comfort zone, protecting the familiar. When I was trapped in a limiting paradigm, still with Toronto Fire Services, I couldn't see a clear path out of debt or a way to change my life. I believed my reality stemmed from a lack of opportunities or my own inadequacy, until a book fell into my hands, revealing the problem wasn't the outside world, but my internal mental model. For the first time, I realized it wasn't external events keeping me stagnant, but an unconscious program dictating my thoughts, decisions, and actions. This shift wasn't just intellectual. It profoundly altered my worldview, leading to decisions I'd never dared make before. Imagine the power this paradigm wields over your potential now. At 40 plus, it's an invisible fence, limiting your perceived movement. It dictates the income level you deem normal for your age, defines plausible opportunities, and even the emotions you feel when facing challenges. The paradigm is so convincing you don't realize you're trapped, because it speaks with your voice, using your own thoughts to justify why something isn't for you. It's like living in a prison whose bars you can't see, yet accept unquestioningly. If you look at your results over the years, your work, earnings, relationships, you'll see a pattern. No matter how hard you try to change your methods, if you don't alter the internal programming, the results revert to the starting point. This explains why people with equal talent and opportunities achieve vastly different outcomes. Some reach extraordinary levels of accomplishment and prosperity, while others struggle, even with hard work. The difference isn't physical effort, but the mental paradigm driving their actions. Changing this paradigm is like replacing the internal map you use to navigate the world. If the map is wrong, no matter how fast you go, you'll always reach the wrong destination. But by changing the map, the entire trajectory shifts. And this change isn't gradual. It can be instantaneous the moment you become aware and definitively decide to reprogram your mind. That's when you start noticing patterns, questioning beliefs, and challenging seemingly natural limitations. You recognize your choices, habits, and results aren't inevitable, but consequences of a program that can be replaced. This process is uncomfortable because it demands awareness. It requires honestly examining your life and admitting you've been on autopilot for decades, but this is also the turning point. When you understand a paradigm controls your behavior and can be modified, you regain control of your destiny. This understanding is liberating because it shows there's no fixed limit to your potential. It all starts with an internal decision, and this decision doesn't depend on your age, current income, or history. It only depends on recognizing the paradigm and committing to changing it. As you reflect, notice that every recurring thought, automatic feeling, and seemingly natural reaction is, in fact, an expression of this mental program. If, from today, you start observing these reactions and ask yourself, is this thought truly mine? Or is it the paradigm speaking? You'll realize there's a space for choice between stimulus and response. This space is where your freedom resides, where transformation begins. There, you can replace autopilot with conscious choices that build a new reality, aligning with what you truly desire for the next years of your life. The same paradigm shaping your daily habits defines your relationship with time and money. It doesn't matter how many productivity techniques you learn or finance courses you take. If the paradigm driving your mind remains the same, your financial results and time usage will stay the same. By 40 plus, this influence becomes even more pronounced as you accumulate decades of experiences reinforcing limiting patterns, justifications, and beliefs about what's possible. This is why so many people reach this stage of life feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and like there's no room to grow. They believe they need to work longer hours to earn more money, but don't realize they're just spinning their wheels within the same mental model. We all receive exactly 24 hours a day, but it's how the paradigm makes us perceive and use those hours that determines the outcome. While one person can achieve in a day what another takes a year to accomplish, it's not because they were born with secret talent or luck, but because they operate on a different paradigm, with beliefs and habits placing them on another level of decision-making, productivity, and focus. This paradigm silently influences how you handle opportunities. Perhaps you've thought, "I'd do that if I had time," or "I'll invest in that project when I have extra money." This waiting is the signature of the paradigm in control, always projecting the future and never releasing the present for action. By 40 plus, many have given up on dreams believing it's too late or too risky now. But this feeling isn't a reflection of reality. It's a reflection of mental programming. When you change the paradigm, you begin to realize time and money are elastic resources, shaped by your awareness and decision. You prioritize, focus on the essentials, cut unproductive activities, and invest energy in what generates real growth. You start thinking like people who build wealth. Instead of trading hours for money, you seek ways to create systems, products, services, or investments that work for you. I learned this firsthand. When I started my first business, I had no formal education or business experience, but I decided to break the paradigm of working for money. Instead, I focused on creating a service that met a real need and could be scaled. In my first year, without an impressive resume, I earned more than $100,000. It wasn't magic, it was a shift in mindset and paradigm. I stopped seeing time as a scarce enemy and started viewing it as an ally I could manage through my choices. For you, this means questioning where your time is truly invested. How many hours a day are spent on activities yielding no return, whether financial or emotional? How many opportunities have been postponed, waiting for the right moment that never arrives? The current paradigm keeps you busy, but not necessarily productive. When you replace automatic tasks with conscious, strategic actions, you discover you can free entire blocks of time and energy to build a new financial reality. A Stanford University study showed that people who learn to prioritize high-impact tasks and reduce distractions can, on average, double their productivity without increasing their work hours. This proves it's not the amount of time available, but the quality of focus and decision. This change doesn't happen from the outside in, it starts internally, with the reprogramming of beliefs about time and money. Stop telling yourself you don't have time and start asking, how can I make space for this now? This simple shift completely alters how your brain filters possibilities and builds solutions. It's not just about making more money. It's about transforming your emotional relationship with money. If you believe money is hard-earned, scarce, and a struggle, that mindset will reinforce situations that prove it true. Shift that belief, and you'll start noticing opportunities and paths you previously overlooked. Time and money cease being enemies and become tools. You break free from the rat race and invest time in learning, creating, and growing. And that's what opens the door to new income streams and higher levels of prosperity. Try this. For 7 days, write down everything you do from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. At the end of the week, honestly assess where your time and energy are leaking. You might be surprised by the number of automatic behaviors, distractions, and unnecessary tasks consuming what could be used to change your life. Then, replace at least 30 minutes a day with studying, planning, or executing something aligned with your bigger goal. This simple habit, consistently maintained, can completely change your relationship with time and consequently with money. By starting to see time and money as expressions of your paradigm, not as uncontrollable external factors, you regain decision-making power. That's when opportunities arise, not because they weren't there before, but because your mind, now tuned to a new frequency, can recognize and act on them. That's the difference between continuing the same routine for another decade and building, even after 40, a completely new path to freedom, prosperity, and fulfillment. When a powerful idea, what I call a why idea, enters your mind, everything seems clear for a few minutes. You see the possibility, feel the hope, start dreaming. Then the moment you decide to turn that idea into action, something appears out of nowhere and pulls you back. A wall, a wave, a voice shouting no. I call this the terror barrier. It's not a pretty metaphor. It's real. It's physical. Your central nervous system, that complex electrical machine you carry inside you, detects any shift toward the unknown and triggers an automatic set of responses. Worry, anxiety, excuses, signals that make you retreat. I've felt it in myself and seen it in millions of others countless times. You become paralyzed, not for lack of courage, but because your biology is trying to keep you safe in what you already know. Do you think this reaction is weakness? It's not. It's the old program reacting to maintain order. But here's the key. What causes fear isn't the reality of the risk. It's the paradigm living inside you, telling you that risk is greater than it actually is. How many times have you let an opportunity pass because you listened to that inner voice? How many nights have you tossed and turned, thinking, what if, only to return to the same place the next morning? This happens because the paradigm prefers the known prison to uncertain freedom. Let me tell you a true story that shows exactly how this works. My brother-in-law in his 50s had spent his life building businesses for other people. He set them up, ran them, grew them, businesses that weren't his. A small opportunity arose to buy a safety supply company. They were scared. They mortgaged their house. They put all their savings on the table. My sister and he were terrified. I said, go for it. It was a leap of faith. Hearts racing, family members questioning, neighbors whispering, they're crazy. That night, reality seemed terrifying. A few months later, with hard work, vision, and persistence, that company became a multi-million-dollar empire. Today, they're semi-retired with their children running the business. What seemed too risky proved to be the passage to something that had previously seemed impossible. This story makes people wince in fear for a second, then lean into a smile of disbelief. Wow, what if I had taken that step? This episode teaches a practical lesson. The virulent emotion of fear doesn't disappear simply through reasoning. Doing what has never been done requires you to cross the terror barrier in motion, not waiting for the fear to disappear. And when you cross, the fear doesn't magically vanish. It's still there, but it loses its authority. You realize what was truly holding you back. It wasn't the world, it was conditioning. Joseph Campbell said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." He wasn't lying. The most terrifying door often guards what you need most. So how do you cross it, especially after 40, when conditioning has decades of momentum? First, recognize the mental pattern. Identify the why idea, the thought that ignited the desire. Second, write down the smallest practical step that brings you closer to that idea, something you can do in the next 24 hours. Don't project perfect scenarios, project a simple, measurable action. Third, physically acknowledge your body's reaction. Short breath, tension, rational justifications, and tell yourself, this is the terror barrier manifesting. I'm moving forward anyway. Fourth, repeat the action with discipline. Each repetition reduces your nervous system's sensitivity to uncertainty, and the old paradigm begins to lose ground. Ask yourself, how many decisions have you postponed for fear of what people would think? How many times has the objection, "What if I lose everything?" been the excuse for never trying? The point isn't to deny the risk, but to assess the risk clearly and act despite the fear, not because of it. Identifying real resources, creating a minimal safety net, seeking experienced mentors, all of this reduces the risk, but the essential passage remains the decision and the action. There's also a less romanticized truth. Many people who cross the terror barrier don't become celebrities. They transform ordinary lives into fully lived lives. You may not gain media attention, but you can regain self-respect, create real financial stability, and sleep without the weight of doubt. And that, after 40, is a primary pleasure that many underestimate. By defying the paradigm, you gain something more valuable than money. You gain the inner proof that you are capable of changing your destiny. Now, something practical you can do immediately. For 3 days, call someone who knows more than you about what you want to do. Ask a direct question, seek specific advice. Ask for a suggestion for an initial step. On the 4th day, take the smallest action that advances that advice. On the 5th day, record what changed. This mini exercise is designed to expose the paradigm and force you to respond with action instead of mental debate. The experience is uncomfortable at first, but inevitably revealing. And remember, you don't need to blow up your life to shift paradigms. Not everyone will mortgage their house to buy a business. Some people will invest time, others will make partnership agreements, others will save small amounts of money. The point isn't the magnitude of the risk, it's the direction of your courage. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. When you cross this threshold, something changes permanently. You don't return to the old place with the same degree of certainty. The decision transforms your vibration, and life begins to respond differently. If fear knocks, let it knock, but don't let it decide. We don't see the world as it is. We see it with an internal map already drawn in our minds. As I often say in my seminars, we don't see with our eyes, we see through our eyes. What we call perception is in fact an active construction of the brain. It tries to predict what will happen and fills in gaps with what it already knows. Neuroscience researchers describe this process as predictive coding. The brain models the world, makes predictions, and uses sensory data to correct or confirm those predictions. When your paradigm is fixed, your internal map generates predictions that support the same experiences day after day. In practical terms, what you expect to see, you tend to see. If you wake up believing that I'm not capable, your brain will seek and select information that proves that belief, small signs, failures, setbacks, and amplify them as evidence. That's why changing perception is so powerful. By altering the mental map, you change how the world presents itself to you. This isn't mysticism, it's basic nervous system functioning. When I changed my own view of what was possible, I stopped seeing limitations everywhere and started seeing doors where I once saw walls. There is also concrete evidence that beliefs and mindsets shape behavior and results. Interventions that work on mindset, teaching a growth mindset, for example, have shown real effects in how people face challenges, persevere, and make decisions that transform their trajectories. In large educational studies and mindset change programs, small changes in thinking have generated measurable differences in performance and openness to new opportunities. This shows that the mind can be reoriented and that this reorientation has a practical, not just theoretical impact. Let me tell you something I always do. In an audience, I ask a group what color someone sitting in front is. The answers turn into laughter and confusion. And then I explain that the color people see is a quick conclusion of the mind, not a pure reading of the eyes. This demonstration is surprisingly deceptive. The audience feels tricked by their own senses. This surprise, however, is educational. Realizing your mind interprets, not just records, unlocks powerful potential. You can train your mind to interpret differently. This moment of being caught by your perception often evokes a mix of awe and hope, because you realize you can rewrite the map. Applying this to money, emotions, and happiness, studies show that belief patterns about money, called money scripts by some researchers, correlate with financial behaviors, even income and net worth. Beliefs like money is dirty, money is insignificant, or money is security guide decisions, saving, investing, and risk-taking. Identifying these scripts is a crucial step towards changing outcomes. It's incredibly difficult to build wealth if you're unconsciously operating under self-sabotaging rules regarding saving, investing, or asking for more. Furthermore, the relationship between income and emotional well-being is complex, but vital to understanding the link between perception and quality of life. Classic research shows that to a certain extent, higher income tends to reduce suffering and improve life satisfaction. However, how each person perceives and uses that income, their beliefs and priorities, significantly impacts their actual well-being gains. In other words, two individuals with similar incomes can have vastly different levels of happiness, simply due to how they interpret and manage their earnings. Now, how can we leverage this science and change our perception daily? With practical steps, not empty theory, steps I myself recommend. First, observe. For 3 days, note the context surrounding your automatic thoughts about money and success. Second, label. Name that belief, e.g., I don't deserve it, it's risky, I'm unlucky. Third, test the prediction. Undertake a small experiment challenging the belief, perhaps offering a service at a slightly higher price, discussing salary with your boss, or transferring 5% of your income to an investment account for 30 days. Fourth, notice your body's physical signals when the belief arises. Shallow breathing, tension, and continue the action despite discomfort. Repeating these micro-actions alters the brain's predictive hierarchy. New evidence begins to overwrite the old narrative. Complementing this, research on financial literacy and financial mindfulness practices shows that working on both technical competence and emotional awareness produces tangible changes in financial behaviors. Better decisions, fewer impulse buys, and more planning. This confirms that willpower alone isn't enough. You must educate your thoughts and feelings about money. An exercise I frequently use with students is simple and direct. For 10 days, whenever a limiting thought about money or ability arises, interrupt it and replace it with a practical question. What's the smallest step I can take now that contradicts this thought? The answer must be a measurable action. If the paradigm says not now, your question should generate a step, transferring a small amount, sending an email, scheduling 20 minutes of study. After 10 days, you'll have created concrete evidence against your mind's old prediction, and that's precisely what rewrites the map. Ultimately, science confirms what I've always taught. Changing your perception changes your results. You aren't at the mercy of invisible circumstances. Circumstances are filtered through your map. When you consciously decide to update this map with information, practical exercises, and repeated small actions, your life begins to reflect possibilities you hadn't previously perceived. Try this now. Observe a limiting thought for a week. Challenge it with a small act, and see how your internal frequency slowly begins to transform the world around you. The key takeaway is simple. The paradigm is the invisible program shaping every decision, every outcome, even how you see your own life. Until it's transformed, nothing truly changes. But the moment you choose to break through that barrier, everything around you begins to reorganize. This is the key that separates those trapped in routine from those creating a new reality. And if this message resonated with you, don't stop here. The next video is already on your screen, and in it, you'll ascend another step in your wisdom evolution, becoming 1% better than you are now. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you in the next video.